Welcome back to the Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Fox Soul. The Business of Being Black today. Should professional athletes be obligated to speak to the media? Now let's circle back to Naomi Osaka, who said she had some mental issues, and those were a part of the reasons why she didn't want to talk to the press. And she got a lot of backlash for that. And a lot of that backlash stemmed from being a weak athlete or a weak person or someone who can't handle this business. Is it something of old where people are saying if you can't handle a fire, get out of the kitchen. If you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. But shouldn't we come up with new ways to help people in their mental stability versus saying, hey, this is how we used to do it. This is how it's been done. And if you don't do it this way, you're weak and you're soft and you shouldn't be playing in the first place. Drew?
I think that I love when that argument gets raised up. But I again, to the specifics of, let's just put ourselves in that position before we start throwing stones. For instance, like if I told Nick, hey, Nick, your editor said your byline was terrible. You can't use semicolons worth of daggone, and you broke your ID badge. How you feel about it today? He's probably not going to want to talk to me about that. It's probably going to be absolutely annoying. No one's asking the person who works in the bank. So your spreadsheet was complete failure. How do you feel? Like it's not really that good. So I would say that there are certain things that come along and obligations that come on with being an athlete. Getting up before the sun gets up to make sure you work out, watching film, preparation, hydration, nutrition, that sort of thing. I still think, though, because of where the athlete is doing, is that what good are you giving to the public? When you're communicating, I should be gaining something from that as a public person. If you have nothing to contribute, then it's a waste of time and I can move on about my day. Again, we should give these athletes exemptions. GMs, coaches, whomever, executives, they should be obligated. But no, don't put it on the athlete. No.
Nick?
Well, I'm gonna to Drew's comment. Yeah, you could talk to me about anything. I'll answer. I have no problem walking away from it. But I do understand your point as far as there needs to be some sort of discretion. And I get that. I never had a problem with Naomi Osaka walking away from that particular situation because she explained it. She said, look, I'm simply going through some mental trauma, some mental issues. I need to step away. It's not like she's never talked to the press ever. It's not like she's always avoided the press. And so at that point, I never had a problem with it. I think it's an archaic way of thinking when you criticize these athletes in that particular way, saying that they're weak or they're not up to par as far as being in that spotlight, because again, there's a lot going on in that spotlight. Yes, they have to be mentally sound and mentally strong to be in that particular position, but they're human just like we are. And so understandably, there are times where, it's okay to step away, but not when it's all the time or it's over 50% of the time where you don't want to talk to the media because you simply mad because you sucked and you don't want to talk about it. No, you're not getting the pass for that, especially for me.
Veranda, another thing they did with Naomi Osaka was they pulled back footage and they pulled back pictures. She had just done a spread for one of the magazines. And a lot of the comments on social media was like, oh, so you were mentally stable enough to handle this spread, but you're not mentally capable enough to play ball. So I want to ask you, as a mental therapist, is it possible that you could function perfectly normal and fine and at your highest level when you're doing something that you love and something that you've trained and something that falls in line with what you do as a profession, and still have mental issues?
Absolutely. There are people that walk around here depressed. You have family members, friends that are depressed. They look completely normal. They laugh. And it's not until they withdraw that you're like, oh, maybe you're depressed, right? So yes, it's completely normal for people to perform at their highest, and still have a mental condition that's taking place behind the scenes. And that comes with the territory. I don't know any one person that's ever not gone through anything. None of us has never not dealt with some type of mental inconsistency. We all have been there in our lives at some point, no matter what we do, where we come from, what our walk of life is. And so I think it's inhuman to say that you haven't. And so she's no different than anyone else. And yet still, we all have jobs that we carry out, right? And we show up and we perform, and we have bad days as well, just like she did. And so she was smart enough. I think it's actually a sign of strength for her to say and be able to say in that moment on a national and international actually platform to say, I can't do this interview. When she knew, and surely she had thought of what the backlash is going to be from media and what everyone was going to say, she had to muster up the strength to say that, knowing what people were going to say and what the response was going to be. She didn't care. And so when I heard that, I was like, yes, finally, someone is actually taking that stance. I was so proud of her. But it's definitely normal for people to show up. You'll see them one day in one capacity, and then it could be a week later and you're like, what is going on? Like it happens that way. It's just how the mind works. Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally got confused because people were saying, oh, you were smiling and happy and shooting this photo shoot. And how are you all of a sudden mental? It's almost like people still don't understand what mental illness and mental issues are. Surely I can take a full photo shoot and smile and cheer and jump up and down and still be depressed and have some issues that are going on in my mind as well. So I never understood why they compared or pulled things, pictures of when she was smiling and compared them to the day that she thought, I can't do this anymore. Nick, you are a member of the media and you interview players. Do you care if your players want to be interviewed or not? Do you want to interview a player that doesn't want to be interviewed? Look, I interview people all the time and a lot of them and I interview entertainers who it is their job to be interviewed, right? and some come in and that day they just don't want to be interviewed. And I have learned to say, well, thank you for coming in, Nick Hamilton. Appreciate you. Much success on what you're doing. And we'll see you later. Thank you for stopping by. Like, I have mastered when they don't want to be there and how to get them out. So how do you feel when a player doesn't want to be interviewed?
I mean, whether it be I interview players and entertainers like you as well. So it's kind of the same principle. I mean, you have to kind of feel it out, realize if they don't want to be interviewed, if it's something that's really, really pressing, like something broke that week, that this is your first time getting an opportunity to ask them. And I may simplify it. I may just ask you one question instead of 3 or 4, just to kind of get you out of there. But I also say this too, people have to understand, as far as you were referencing, Tammi, the Naomi Osaka photo shoot that people were looking at. A lot of times we hold on to stuff for months. We don't know when that photo shoot was actually taken. That could have been held for a certain time period where the editor says, look, we'll hold on to this. It's evergreen. We'll keep this, or this video was evergreen, so we'll hold on to this. And then when something happens, a movie comes out or a new TV series, or, the Super Bowl is coming, we'll drop this interview then. So we don't know when the timing is. And then also, too, oftentimes Black athletes get criticized way more than their Caucasian counterparts. Yeah, and that's something that has to be looked at upon as well, because both their Caucasian counterparts, Black athletes, Latino athletes, whoever, are all going through something similar as far as mental situations, but they're not given the same grace sometimes as the others are given. And like I said, it's about discretion. Yes, do I believe that the athletes will be required to talk to the media? Absolutely. But also, too, let's think logically for a second. If they're going through something mentally, then you have to say, hey, maybe I get them on the next go round, especially if they're always talking to the media, or simplify it and say, hey, I'm gonna ask one question instead of 3 or 4 and get them out of there so they can go on about the rest of their day.